Watching the whole situation where, you, Peter, and your sons go on vacation while Amina's pregnant, and watching him kind of explain the whole, I'm going to go shoot an energy drink commercial and everything else like that. Seeing the whole breadth of it, how did you feel?
I wish I could say I was remorseful, but I'm not. When you willingly jump into when you willingly get involved in a non-traditional relationship or something that's just not very 1, 2, 3, then you have to expect the results that aren't very 1, 2, 3. So, in what happened is that my children and I had gone through a lot over the past year. Them having to understand that their father didn't live in the household, them having to understand, the tension. So it was just something that was much needed. And when you have more than one child, as a woman getting involved with a man who has more than one child, those are maybe some of the things you have to accept that he has to worry about, not just you. And so, that vacation was something that was much needed, and for not just for me, but for our kids. It was amazing seeing them on the beach and seeing them just see us like put our differences aside for a little while to make sure that they have a great time, and not to mention it was something that we had never been able to do before. And I definitely wanted to do it because I knew that once his new child was born, that changes the complete dynamic of the entire situation. And when are you ever going to be able to have, your last two boys and this whole dynamic before your life changes? You're about to be a new dad, new babies, bring about, you need more time there, more energy there. Amina will need a break and you have to be there. So that takes away from time from our children. So it was just something that was needed for us.
We interviewed Amina, and she said that the two of you are working on a relationship right now. Have you guys become friends? Cool?
Amina and I are working on a relationship. I think that, there were definitely things I needed to say to her, but just to get off my chest and before we could build that relationship, so we were able to sit down and talk about those things. And so we are working on our relationship, absolutely. I've kept the baby in my apartment, and she's beautiful, and you don't want that negative energy around children. So it's very important that even if I have to be the bigger person when it comes to building a relationship with her, and that's quite challenging, it was challenging. I still have to do that for the sake of the kids.
What's it like being able to actually compare stories with her? Whereas, a lot of this was, completely unknown until recently.
Well, what it's like to compare is, when you look at the situation that happened between Peter and Mina, I don't think that after seeing this that, he was faithful to me until he met Amina. It's like, oh, well, what else is there? I didn't know that she knew those things, but for me, it still makes me look at her like, well, you knew all of these things. You knew those things, and then you say that you didn't really know about me, but it's just it definitely still makes it very complicated for the relationship with her in terms of you knew these things, so then you also in some respect knew about me, so it's hard for me to understand why you would fall in love and thus then go have a child with a man after you knew he had a family, especially given the history before.
Did you see the Instagram post that Peter did? The keep calm and stop snitching?
I did.
What's your take on that?
I didn't take it that serious. Peter, he lives in the moment, so whatever he's feeling, he will post. So I didn't really take it that serious.
I mean, she was technically snitching to you.
And I'm not mad at her for snitching. I'm just saying, then, I have to look at you and say, in what respect do you think it's okay to treat another woman like this? You could say, well, we were married, But, my point is, you guys were not in some happy relationship, just living your lives, and then Taranasha shows up with her 2 children. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like a catch-22, because it just kind of like the circle never ends. And I would say that if I were in those shoes, I don't know if in the middle of finding out that this man was not living with me as a roommate and not sleeping on our couch, I don't know if I would have then gone and had a child. Because, I mean, how crazy does it get once you see that? So and I'm saying that to say that's part of, my frustrations, because people are like, well, you can't blame her. You can't, I get that, Amina doesn't owe me anything. But, you have to also know that that's not a move that's done without harm or ill intent once you know the entire situation.
I kind of feel like, well, whatever you do, you have to take responsibility for.
That's my point. It's just everybody taking responsibility for their part in it, and that includes myself. I'm not sitting here saying like I'm some saint and I'm so perfect and I don't own my own responsibility in it, but I don't have responsibility in terms of intentionally or hurting someone after this situation. So I think that the biggest apology should be to, this is crazy, and apologizing for hurting another person, not for snitching, I mean, if you do something, then, you have to prepare for someone to tell it. And if a woman feels like she's being, beaten over the head for something that she didn't know, then she's going to do what she has to do to defend herself. But I don't think that in that defense, I think that she has to look at, like, wait a minute. If you knew all of those things, then it is very clear you knew he was X, Y, and Z before you proceeded on and got yourself so involved. Sometimes people would look at this, and if this came out, a person would run. Like, okay, wait a minute. What just happened here? And, she didn't choose to run. She chose to, let me dig myself in this a little bit more. And without giving respect to, someone that had been here in this relationship for a long time, and that it would take me time to heal from it all. You don't just get out of a relationship and be emotionally okay after 13 years and the way it all happened. That's just impossible. And, people can say, well, even after you knew he was married, you did this or you did that. And I'm like, well, we were still living together, and we were still, it was all coming out at the same moment that we were still living together. And, we, even when her child was conceived, we were still living together. We had not, it's like any divorce. If you divorce someone, you don't just leave, you may not talk to each other. You may, separate yourself and try to distance yourself in the house, but you guys are still living together until that lease is up, until, we discuss how we're going to separate finances. It's the same thing with a long-term relationship. You don't just get out of it and it's a clean breakaway.
I was like crossover music, so it feel good, man. I don't look at nothing by it, not a bias. It's good, man. You make music so people recite it, and that's what they don't recite a song.
I mean, yeah, it seems kind of grimy on a moral issue and all of that, but shit, as people get older and all that, you got men who are like 50-something years old marrying girls who's like
28,
20.